have sailed the peaceful waters of the ocean deep and blue. I held my breath and watched the western sunset's golden hue. I've flown above the mountain peaks and valleys wide and green, but you're the nearest thing to heaven that I've seen. You're the nearest thing to heaven, yes you are. I have searched for happiness so long and far, but my search for love was through the day that I found you, 'cause you're the nearest thing to heaven, yes you are. I confess that I've been tempted by alluring magic charms, when a smile was flashed my way and stood before two open arms. But I turn and walk away because I love you like I do. You're the nearest thing to heaven, darling, you. You're the nearest thing to heaven, yes you are. I have searched for happiness so long and far, but my search for love was through the day that I found you, 'cause you're the nearest thing to heaven, yes you are. I have watched the silver raindrops fall to earth to cool the day, watched the rainbow at twilight when the clouds had blown away. I love the pretty flowers, money cannot buy their worth, but you're the nearest thing to heaven on this earth. You're the nearest thing to heaven, yes you are. I have searched for happiness so long and far, but my search for love was through the day that I found you, 'cause you're the nearest thing to heaven, yes you are.
Georgia, Georgia, the whole day through, just an old sweet song keeps Georgia on my mind. Georgia, Georgia, a song of you comes sweet and clear as moonlight through the pines. Other arms reach out to me, other eyes smile tenderly. Still in peaceful dreams I see the road leads back to you. Georgia, Georgia, no peace I find, just an old sweet song keeps Georgia on my mind. Georgia, Georgia, no peace I find, just an old sweet song keeps Georgia on my mind. Just an old sweet song keeps Georgia on my mind, on my mind, on my mind, on my mind. On my mind, on my mind, on my mind, on my mind.
This is my heaven, being here with you. Make it last forever. This is my heaven, it's a dream come true. Make it last forever. Come to me now and take my hand. This is the paradise I planned. You're like an angel sent from up above. Let's stay close together. You brought me heaven when I shared your love. Make it last forever. Here 'neath the sky, beside the sea, this is my heaven when you come to me. so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I traveled each and every highway and more, much more than this. I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do, saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway. More, much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times, I'm sure you knew, when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spit it out. I faced it all, and I stood tall and did it my way. I've loved, I've laughed and cried, I've had my fill, my share of losing, and now, as tears subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did all that, and may I say, not in a shy way, oh no, not me. I did it my way. For what is
Welcome. If you could all have a seat. We're so glad you're here. It's 1:04. Grandpa would have had this started 5 minutes ago. Take your time. Come on in. That was just a joke. Don't be scared. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here, and welcome to St. Mark's. Thanks for braving our Indiana monsoon season. And a special thanks to those of you who traveled from afar, and to those of you watching online. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate your presence today. My name is Mary Ellen May, and I'd like to welcome you to the celebration of life of Doran William May. I want to thank you on behalf of our family, and especially on behalf of Grandma Mary Ellen right here. Let's give her a round of applause. Yeah, she deserves it. She has been married to Doran for 77 years, so that deserves all the applause you can get. Yeah. Just an amazing love story. My grandparents, Doran and Mary Ellen, both led extraordinary lives and demonstrated deep commitment, love, and devotion to each other and to so many of us. So today we celebrate them, and we reflect on the magnitude of their impact in our lives. Thank you, Doran and Mary Ellen. And with that, I'd like to welcome Pastor John Huff to lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we praise you for the great company of all those who have finished their course in faith and now rest from their labor. We praise you for those dear to us whom we name in our hearts before you. We especially praise you for Doran, whom you have graciously received into your presence. To all of these, grant your peace. Let perpetual light shine upon them, and help us so to believe where we have not seen, that your presence may lead us through our years, and bring us at last with them into the joy of your home, not made with human hands, but eternal in the heavens, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
I know you didn't expect to see me today, but I wanted to take this opportunity to tell my friends and family what a blessed life I've had. And I've just, due to modern technology and a granddaughter who can put this all together, I wanted to let you know what a blessed life I've had. Now, I've had a wonderful wife for over 60 years. In fact, we just celebrated our 63rd wedding anniversary, and today is December 14th, 2011. And my wife and I, we've traveled a lot, we've worked together, we've done a lot of things, and she's given me 4 fine sons, which when I shut up, each one of them will say a little bit about their dad. And the one thing I wanted to really say is how I've lived my life. George Bernard Shaw did a lot of writing and said some things that I thought pertained to me, at least the way I lived my life. And I want to tell you what that is. He said, and I quote, "I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. For the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no mere brief candle to me. It is a sort of a splendid torch, which I've got to hold up for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations." Now, each of our 4 sons, who we were so proud of, we will say a few words about me. And right now, I am having a great reunion with Zachary and all my friends who've gone and family who've gone before me. And I'm going to leave it with that and let my sons take over from here.
My father, when I was young, I saw him at the end of the day and sometimes at noon, but he was in and out because he was working an incredible number of hours. In the early part of my life, he played, I think, a more symbolic role. And if Kip and Brian and I were fighting at the end of the day when he got home, then we knew he got to play the disciplinarian because Mom would report. I really didn't get to know my father a lot until I think I was probably 10 or so and old enough to work or get involved in athletics in such a way that he would always show up for my swim meets and that sort of thing. So clearly, Mom played the more dominant role in the very early years, and then as each of us became older, then he would play a more significant role through particularly work.
My father's personality. It's not totally unlike what it is today. I mean, he's one of these unchanged human beings, kind of out of control, highly energetic. He's Mr. Affirmation, Mr. Enthusiast. I've always kind of seen him as one who is open to anyone, friendly, high energy, certainly sees himself as a provider and supporter of his family. Very likable human being.
My father, Doran, he must have struggled with memory after 2 names. So when he would introduce me, we would go around, he would start going through the list. They'd say, who am I? He'd go, well, Michael, Kip, and then he'd go, number 3. And so I became number 3, and over again, I was introduced and frequently referred to as I'm number 3 son.
Of course, when I was real little, Dad was at work a lot. Some of the early memories I remember just like about when I was about 5 years old, that's when they started remodeling the house and putting in the swimming pool. Once the swimming pool got put in and the whole house got remodeled, and I was like 5 or 6, so that's when your memories start sinking in a little better. Dad, worked with me on swimming, and of course, Dad was at that time, he was really big into the skin diving and things, and they got me learning how to swim with a mask on my face before I could really, because I didn't like the water. Most kids don't like the water, so of course Dad put a mask on me and it fit, so I swam forever with a mask on my face.
Dad played a very significant role, certainly in my life, and his role was really the role of stretching the boundaries, of pushing the limits of adventure. And for a while, I always suspected that he just had a huge death urge, and I've since come to understand that I think it was not so much a death urge as just therapy for the incredible and challenging marathon that he was always running in regards to work. I mean, he'd get up very early in the morning to go make ice cream, as I recall, 4:30, 5 in the morning he was working, and then many nights he'd be working until midnight or 1 o'clock, particularly on hot summer nights, to run the business. And he might get a little break in the afternoon, come home, take a nap or whatever, but he was working. That's what he did. He worked.
So much of our life is centered around the family business, the Penguin. It wasn't like I'd say, hey Dad, what days am I going to work this week? It's every day you're going to work.
For you, I know I'd even try to turn the tide, because you're mine. I walk the line.
Being the son of Doran May, birthdays take on extra significance because that's the day you pass out ice cream cards. So we always had 10-cent free gift at the Penguin, and he would always load me up with a big supply on my birthday. I'd get permission from the teacher, then walk around and pass out the free ice cream cards. And it was really pretty cool because everybody loves ice cream. Everybody loves something for free. And also it's a chance for me to become instantly popular with people that may or may not already like me.
Then going down to the Penguin and seeing him down there working, spending some time down there, doing some of the work and sweeping the lot things and that kind of stuff, and having him work down there.
And yet, there was this other side of our father that was a wild adventurer. He was one of the first people in southern Indiana to become involved in scuba diving, and this was shortly after the aqua lung was invented. He had a wild mentor who was always doing crazy pioneering things, and he taught Dad how to scuba dive, and there was an instant connection.
One thing, think you move.
He was one of the pioneers in scuba diving here in the Midwest. And we used to go scuba diving in quarries and strip mines and lakes.
Scuba diving was a significant preoccupation with my father. He was, among other things, a certified instructor, which was pretty cool credentials. And Dad was kind of like the guru of the skin diving community in Wilmington.
People would call them up because they lost something, they're both tipped over, something like that. So Dad always, I'll go get it for you, I'll charge you $10 or whatever it might be. Just because Dad, it gives Dad an excuse to get away and go skin diving for the day and getting people's false teeth, rings, tackle boxes, whatever it might be to fell out of the boat at the time that tipped over and those type of things. And Dad was always helping other people, and I guess there was a time when he had to go place, charges, explosives and stuff down around Lake Monroe's Dam, and the fire department, Dad had the only air compressor that filled air tanks, so that when there was a bad fire and the firemen were using the air tanks to get in through the fires, Dad would sit down there all night filling air tanks for the fire department. So he was always helping people.
He developed quite a reputation, quite a following. Anyone who wanted to get into the sport of skin or scuba diving, they came to Doran. So even the guy who currently directs the Indiana University scuba program, which has done a lot of pioneering research and exploration down in the Caribbean and Central America, he was trained by Doran May. So I grew up under that kind of adventure, but it wasn't just scuba diving, it was also spelunking. What we would do is we'd go out and crawl around in the mini caves in south central Indiana. Of course, Monroe County, as I understand it, has more caves than any other similar sized geography on the planet. Dad would love to take the Cub Scout troop or the Boy Scout troop or whoever would show up to go crawl through these caves, and it was always a great adventure. And then, of course, when I got older, it was motorcycles. Race motorcycles through the woods of what now is the Hoosier National Forest. But every weekend and more often if possible, we would head off to the woods with our bikes and that sort of thing.
Certainly riding motorcycles with him, and in those days we did what was called trail riding, going out old fire trails with motocross motorcycles. Those kinds of activities, very strong in my memory.
He did the motorcycle deal for a while. He rode his motorcycles around, and that was always, when he was a little kid, father that rides motorcycles, always kind of neat, and he liked, going to trail riding and stuff, and that was when Lake Monroe first opened up out there in the Hoosier National Forest. They kind of let everybody go running around out there until the environmentalists kind of started going, well, let's tear up everything with all the motorcycles and four-wheel drive people and all that kind of stuff, so they kind of put a stop to it for a while. But when it first opened up, Dad had gone, Mike was going out there too and stuff, and Kip, but they ended up finding a couple of these old hermit guys, Roscoe and Eli Hayes, and those kind of stories about them coming up, meeting them and things.
So he was a great adventurer. That's certainly what I remember, and made a huge impact. And he salvage dives. When I was old enough, when I got to be a teenager, I would accompany Dad on these weekend events. And sometimes these large digger chains, which would go down into the river, the White River, which is, they lower these many-ton pieces of steel, and they would churn up the mud and whatever on the bottom, and these would go down 30, 40 feet into the river, and these gravel pits. Nonetheless, every now and then, one of the cables on those would break, and this multi-ton piece of steel would go down and get sunk into the mud on the bottom. Well, they would call Doran to come reattach a cable so they could lift this thing up. There was utterly no romance involved. This was just pure fear. And yet it was a great, terrifying adventure. And once I began to figure out what was going on, I mostly went along not for the adventure, but just so that someone would be there to bring my father's body back. That was my primary understanding of why I was even going, because no one else would be there to do it. But it was great, because I had a chance to, at least in my mind, encounter death on a regular basis, or the opportunity for death. But that was the kind of adventure that our father was always exposing us to, and made a huge impact, but also reveals there was something therapeutic that happened, I think, in his life from the mundane work. Let's go out and stare death in the face. Let's go out and have an experience which gets the adrenaline at a very high level in a cave, or at the bottom of a dark riverbed, or in the bottom of a quarry hole, or let's go see how fast we can ride our motorcycles up this hill or through this woods. And suddenly it provided a nice balance for everything else that was happening in our lives.
He also had this annual trek to Florida. His mother lived there. They'd always go scuba diving in the ocean. I wasn't quite old enough to join them on all those deep sea adventures, but he was always doing that every year. I would get dropped off with my grandmother, but that was all right at the time. I share something in common with my father that most people do not know about. My father and I each have the same first grade teacher. No, not at the same time. About 25 years apart, maybe 26 years apart, we had the same first grade teacher. My first grade teacher's name was Mrs. Oliver. I know when you're at that age, teachers and adults might appear to be significantly older than they really are, and I was sure that she was in her 80s at the time. Maybe she was only in her 60s. I'm not really sure. But we're having a conversation on the first day of school, going around classroom, everybody introducing themselves, and I tell her that my name's Brian May, and she looks at me and smiles, and she says, "Are you Doran May's boy?" I said, "Well, yes, I am." And she says, "I had Doran in the first grade so many years ago." Well, that continued past first grade. I'm living in Bloomington, Indiana. Frequently, we would go to a restaurant or a store, anywhere. I'd be with maybe my mother, maybe with my father. People would look at me and they'd always say, "Oh, you're Doran May's boy." I'd say, "Yes, I am." And it would happen often enough that I started getting used to it, so I could never escape it, and then on and on. So I always had that brand that I was Doran May's boy.
As I came along, as I got a little bit older, 8, 9, most of my brothers were starting to get, almost driving and moving on and doing other things. So Dad tried to spend more time with me on trying to make some time, and Tuesday was our day. We tried to do Tuesday days, we'd go fishing, or he eventually started getting me where I could go skin diving with him, where we went to some of the strip pits and fished. And later, as we got a little bit older, all my brothers moved out. We had a few just family vacations with Dad, Mom, and me, and because everybody else was gone, I was the one left. So in the long run, from about 12 years old up, I was almost the only child in some sense of the matter.
My father was a great, and is a great salesman, and I never had any particular love of sales or marketing, and no particular interest certainly in pursuing that path. I could think of 100 more noble things to do with my life, but the truth is, I've become my father. I've become the salesman and the marketeer that he always was and that I was exposed to, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm confident that it's both somewhere in the genes, but certainly also in the example. And the other thing about Dad is he had just such a great common touch, which my grandfather also had, his father. But it's that common touch that I'm probably the weakest link in regards to having that or understanding it, but certainly I've been able to exercise that in the business world, and I've appreciated that.
We were always a pretty clean, wholesome family. We grew up as Methodists. I'm not sure we ever did anything that John Wesley would disapprove of. There was never anything like gambling, alcohol, cigarettes in our house. Believe me, I looked for it all through every room through my teenage years. It just wasn't there. He was certainly is a steadfast human being. I'm sometimes described as someone steadfast, reliable, and I would certainly attribute part of that to the influence of my father. To this day, if he says he'll be there at 10 o'clock, he'll probably be there at 9:45, and you can count on it, like the sun.
I'm number 3. I've known Doran May for 72 years. What I was going to do is tell you 72 stories of memories and fun things about my father, things that I learned from him, and then I was told I only had 5 minutes. Lucky for you, I only have one page of notes. I was going to tell you we had the same first grade teacher. They already told you that in the movie there. A lot of our lives did revolve around the Penguin. It was only open for 9 months out of the year. So our vacations happen in the wintertime, and usually happen towards Florida or someplace warmer. I remember one vacation where we're traveling in the car. We're about 900 miles into the deep south, traveling down some lonesome highway, and I think this was before seatbelts were invented, so us kids were having a grand old time in the back seat. My mother turns around and she looks and says, "Where's Kip?" Oops. It's a good thing we remembered where that last rest stop was. My father taught me a lot of things. One of them is he taught me how to water ski. And that was out at Lake Lemon, and our good friend Jim Auld is in the audience today. Thank you for loaning us your lake and cottage. Learned how to water ski, just not great, but just well enough to be sore for about 3 days afterwards. He also taught me how to scuba dive. He taught me how to scuba dive in our backyard. It did help to have a swimming pool there. That made it a lot easier. So you actually could scuba dive in our backyard. Another place we scuba dived, have you seen the movie Breaking Away? The opening scene, they're in a quarry hole there. Long before they thought about filming a movie there, we were there, scuba diving and snorkeling around that quarry hole. Another place we went, back in Florida, it was Crystal River. We rented a boat. It was my father, Michael, Kip, and I in a boat. We traveled to an interesting spot to dive, and a manatee joined us. And it wasn't afraid of us, and it kept coming around. And so that was one of my great memories of my childhood, is swimming with a manatee.
There was another trip where my dad took me deep sea fishing. This is in Florida again. We got on a boat that was like a chartered boat of about 30 or 40 people, and it goes way out into the Gulf, and it's for about 3 or 4 hours. It took about 15 minutes for me to start getting really, really sick. And pretty quick after that, I started to heave-ho over the side of the boat. That lasted for several minutes. And then when I was done, I started to heave-ho again over the side of the boat, and that lasted for about 3 hours. If you're wondering, I didn't catch any fish that time, and that was my first and last deep sea fishing trip. Dad took me on a canoe trip. We did it together with another Boy Scout troop. I was pretty young compared to the other Boy Scouts. There were 6 canoes, 2 people in a canoe, and we went down the Whitewater River. We had about 36 miles to travel. After 20 miles, there was an island there, and we camped out on the island. All right, so these older Boy Scouts are running around. I think they were working on their merit badges or getting ready to sing Kumbaya or something like that around the campfire. And all of a sudden, by the campfire, there was this loud commotion and a bunch of explosions. It was Dad. He had about 1,000 firecrackers, and he was dead set on setting every one of them off. It was a giant distraction. Everybody came over, and everybody got in on it. It was great fun and enjoyment for the rest of the evening, shooting off all his firecrackers. And it was that evening that my father became my role model for having a great time on a campout. Dad gave me my first driving lesson. If you can picture the old Penguin location, and it was next to Walnut Street, and then in the back was the license bureau across the parking lot there. After work one night, I think I was maybe 15 or something, he's going to teach me how to drive with a clutch in the parking lot. And the way I remembered it was, I think I gave it a little bit too much gas, let the clutch out a little too fast, and then we went supersonic right across the parking lot and almost turned the license bureau into a drive-through. After that, I decided I better wait for a little bit longer before I try that again. For my 11th birthday, I got my wish. My father figured out how to find and buy me a unicycle. That was a gift that changed my life forever, and that was brought a lot of joy for me for the next 50 plus years. I won't demonstrate any of that now, though. My father and I had pretty much the same phone conversation for the last 3 decades. At least there was a part of it that we rehearsed every time. Here's how it would go. I'd call, usually from Pittsburgh. I'd say, and the phone would ring twice. And Linda and I had a rule that if the phone rings more than twice, then Dad's not home. That was the rule. He'd always catch the phone by the second ring. All right, so I would call. Sure enough, by the second ring, my father picks up the phone. Doran May speaking. So I would say, this is number 3 here. And he'd say, without being able to see me, he'd say, oh, you're looking good. And then I would repeat back to him, yeah, you're looking good too. How are you feeling? And he would say, if I felt any better, I couldn't stand it. And that was every time. That was pretty much the conversation. There was one trip where we're visiting with their house on Mount Gilead Road. If you'd ever been there, you would know it's huge. I mean, it's a big, big house. The kitchen's over here. There's the dining room, and then way, way, way over here is the living room with a couch and a couple of chairs. And my father had incredible ability to go to sleep on command. So he could lay down on the couch, you could be talking to him, he'd lay down, and like 10 seconds later, he's asleep. He's in a deep snore. All right, so here I am visiting. We'd had that conversation with my father. He lays down asleep on the couch way over here. I'm just happened to be walking through the kitchen when the phone rang. Phone rings in the kitchen. My father's way over here on the couch. From a dead sleep, deep snoring, he leaps up off the couch, does a 20-yard dash all the way across the living room, and he was on that phone by the second ring. Keeping that in mind was one reason that we chose not to have an open casket during this service. There's a few more things that I wanted to get into, but we'll have to save them for another day. The three things I had listed were, we could probably have 97 famous quotes from Doran May. He had a lot of them, and they were a lot of fun, and maybe we could review a few of those over ice cream later. He also had, there's a lot of fun examples of him being in a hurry, and things just didn't go the same way because he was in a hurry, and those stories are fun to share as well. And then there's a whole book you could write about ethics for working at the Penguin and the Chocolate Moose, and I learned a lot of those from him as well. So I just want to give a send out to my father. I'll keep it quick. Dad, thank you for a full life of memory. Thank you. You're a hard act to follow. As your son, I was always number 3. As my father, you were always number 1.
Good afternoon. I first want to thank Marianne and Ruth for your beautiful documentary of your grandfather. My name is Liana Joe. Whenever Doran introduced me to his friends, he would always say with a big smile, "This is my Chinese daughter, Liana." That was Doran, loving, warm, and full of kindness. And to me, Doran was my American father, and Mary Ellen, my beautiful American mother. They are among the most loving parents I've ever known. I came to Indiana University as a student, and after graduation, I continued working at IU. Throughout all those years, Doran and Marianne became my most loving host family and truly my American parents. I experienced their unconditional love, not only for me, but also for my family. Doran became very well known and deeply loved in my Chinese family in China. My beloved mother, father-in-law, and sister all visited with us in Bloomington and experienced Doran's hospitality and friendship firsthand. To all of us, Doran represented the very best qualities of America: hard work, optimism, generosity, openness, compassion, and humor, kindness and devotion to family. Doran and Marianne welcomed me, my husband, and our family, Rich, Benton, Abby, and Annie, with open arms and loving hearts. Rich treasures the memories of riding with Grandpa Doran, as Doran would pick him up and take him to Fairview Elementary School, where they serve as chess coaches in a program funded by Michael May. From Grandpa Doran, Rich learned about business, self-discipline, perseverance, and never giving up. Doran gave us the greatest gifts anyone could hope for: faith, love, music, laughter, encouragement, advice, kindness, and a home. The memories of May's family holidays, feasts, and ice creams are lasting and beautiful. Thank you, Doran, for your unconditional love, care, and goodness. To Michael and Mary, Kip and Ann, Brian and Linda, Tim and Michelle, and to Marianne and Ruth, Michael D., Carmen, Melissa, Kevin, Jessica, and the entire loving May family. Thank you for sharing your wonderful father, father-in-law, grandfather, great-grandfather, and great-great-grandfather with us. And please accept our profound condolences for your loss. And to dear Marianne, we love you so very much. Our hearts are with you during this time of profound loss and sorrow. I will miss Doran always, as a hero, as a friend, and as the loving American father this Chinese daughter could ever dream of having. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Melissa May, the daughter of number 3. So apparently storytelling has run in the family and has been contagious. Growing up in Pittsburgh, my brother and I were the only grandchildren of the large May family that was just listed out to not grow up in Bloomington. And so for me, it was always incredibly special to come visit for holidays, but it was always such a short visit. With one really big exception. So I did learn from my grandfather that every good story starts with the year it happened. So in 2011, I finished grad school at Penn State, and I had a plan to drive across country for a summer job I had gotten in Alaska. So I couldn't leave Pennsylvania without driving through Indiana. So I was planning to stop in on my way out of town. And so I called, and on the second ring probably, Grandpa answered the phone and said, yeah, we're excited to see you on Wednesday, and the family will be coming over for pizza. And just in case you were interested, I could come with you to Anchorage and fly back after the end of your trip. And I know it's totally up to you, but just in case, I already packed a bag. And so my grandmother, Mary Ellen, didn't really want me going all that far all on my own. And so it was also one of my grandpa's great wishes in life to be able to drive the Alcan Highway. That seemed like a really great adventure. So I called and he was ready to go, and I said, let's do it. So 2 days later, with 2 days planning, we made some adjustments to the itinerary. I think after we had already left, I'd been planning to take about 2 weeks to do the trip. And he was like, well, I told your grandmother I'd be back in 10 days. So do you think we can make that work? And so the way we made that work was in typical Doran fashion. We woke up in the hotel each morning, or he woke up in the hotel at about 4 a.m., paced around the lobby of the hotel until 5 a.m. when he had convinced them to serve us the 6 a.m. continental breakfast before we hit the road. So he would roll me into the car early in the morning, drive until he got his urge for the morning nap, and then we would trade off. But I had about 80 hours worth of car time, quality time with my grandfather, and learned so much about the family genealogy, his business and real estate experience, his love story meeting Grandma, all of the family adventures and things about Bloomington that I had missed growing up in another town. But we really had some awesome adventures. Being a good businessman, it was really important to him that we got good gas mileage on the trip. So he said it's most important to drive 55 miles per hour. That's when you get the good gas mileage. And so seeing how he's driven sometimes, I was very happy to hear this. And we did get great gas mileage. With one exception, which was when we got to Yellowstone National Park. We drove in from the east entrance from Cody, Wyoming, and Grandpa was so excited to see, he called it all the hot pots and shooters or something like that for the geysers. He had a great nickname for it, but we got all the way there, and that entrance to the park was closed. So then, on a national park road in the Grand Tetons with bison and elk on the road, that's when he decided it was time to drive about 75 or 80 miles an hour to get around to the north entrance of the park. We did thankfully get safely to Yellowstone, and we got safely all the way across the country. But yeah, we got a little bit of the Doran May special driving experience there. In classic generous fashion, he knew he was kind of imposing on my trip, so he paid for our hotels, he frequently paid for our meals, including when we got up into the Yukon Territory. We were probably 18 hours north of the US border, and he wanted to pay for our lunch with the best currency there is, the US dollar, and not just the regular US dollar, $2 bills. And so he handed the waitress a wad of $2 bills, and she didn't really know what to think about that. But as his grandkid, I know that that's the best Christmas gift, the best gift you can possibly get. So on our schedule to stay on the 10-day timeline, we had our last day we started out in Whitehorse, Yukon, and we had 13 hours to get to Anchorage. And so we went for it. We drove all the way through, and it was the land of the midnight sun, so it was still looked like late afternoon when we got there at 10 p.m. We hadn't eaten dinner, so we found a little diner and pulled over to just celebrate making it all the way to Anchorage. And while we were waiting for our food, he was like, I think I'd better just see what the flight options are here in Anchorage. And so he goes in the lobby, makes a couple calls, comes and sits down, and he said, my flight leaves in 2 hours. Can you take me back to the airport after dinner? So his priority was to get back home to Grandma and make sure she was happy and staying on his timeline. So I got the whole Doran May experience of family stories, generosity, kindness, adventure, little driving excitement, and most importantly, doing whatever is necessary to make sure Grandma's happy. So I'll never forget my grandpa. I'll think about his hugs very frequently. I hope I can give lots of hugs to everyone here today in his memory, but thank you.
Ryan told me a lot of things I have to remember not to say.
Well, thank you for being here. What an extraordinary and unthinkable gift you are. We planned this, of course, on a rainy Wednesday afternoon in the middle of the week when everybody's at work, and about 30 years after Doran and Mary Ellen's all their closest friends had already died. And so we didn't really anticipate all of you being here. But your being here is a testimony to this extraordinary woman in the front row and the extraordinary partnership of 77 years that continues to manifest in the community represented here. So thank you. My father was not normal. I am so grateful he was not normal. After Dad died, I watched the video prepared by Doran and Mary Ellen for this occasion. I said to myself, yep, that says it all. Then something funny happened. Doran left a written message that he wanted me to speak at this event. I was forced to ask myself, what difference has this man at this mature stage of life, what difference has this man made in my life? Now, immediately upon giving voice to this question, an echo from the cosmos began to reverberate in my deepest being. And the message was something like this: you don't have a clue. Now, this answer surprised me a lot. As I attempt to unravel this revelation, please understand I am making no claim whatsoever about anything I may or may not have manifest in my own life. Rather, I simply wish to illuminate a fundamental posture towards life Doran embraced and embodied. I simply wish to acknowledge the seed of that posture planted in my heart by the man I call Dad. The revelatory illumination I experienced was this: it was Doran who, from the beginning, planted in me and nurtured a contemplative heart. Now, this was the wackiest thought I could have imagined about myself thinking about my father. Yes, I can hear your reflection now. Doran never used the word contemplative and might not appreciate it being used in describing his life. Yet as I opened myself to this echo, the connection was undeniable. Those of you who knew Doran, and as we have heard proclaimed today, know he was always in a hurry, ready to move to whatever was next. If Doran, in his original package, would have been born today, he would have been quickly diagnosed with a disorder, probably several, the names for which did not exist at that point. Drugs would have been prescribed to help him fit in. Some deeper intelligence guided Doran to show up when he did. Some deeper intelligence placed me in his shadow to grow. It all began in front of the family home on South Walnut Street. When Doran was 3 years of age, around 1932, he sat atop his tricycle. Doran rode up and down Walnut Street which at that point was the main drag through Bloomington, Highway 37. This movement, this momentum, this action continued over the next 9 decades on bicycles, in cars, trucks, on motorcycles, in canoes and boats, through caves, on rivers and lakes, in forests, under the ocean, and around the world. It took Doran over 90 years to traverse the distance from Walnut Street, just over the hill, to Belle Trace, where the movement finally stopped and the 11th hour arrived. I am not proclaiming here that Doran was a self-conscious and practicing contemplative. I am confident he was not. What I'm saying is that his life was driven by a need, a compulsion, a desire, an obsession to find a path beneath the surface of superficial living. He was driven by a quest for an alternative posture towards life, an alternative to simply seeking security and comfort. He taught me life is a deep place, not so much by his words as by his example, his actions. For him, a comfort zone was simply a prison from which to escape. He sought a personal experience of connection with the real. It was this example he embedded in my heart. The contemplative grasp that life is a deep place. Superficial living on the surface produces only a superficial life. There is an Oriental proverb that characterizes my father. Excuse me, technological challenges. I need somebody under 10. And this Oriental proverb proclaims, whoever mounts a tiger can never again dismount. This was the truth of my father. This was the great gift of restlessness in this world that was in his heart and was planted in mine. Contemplation is not a belief, but a practice and a posture of living, perpetually seeking personal, experiential connection with the real, the really real, the ultimately real. The contemplative dives in. The contemplative wishes to feel the reality. Yes, you can drown in the deep water, but the water can also support you as well as drown you, no matter how deep the situation. It is personal experience that is often missing in our contemporary abstracted lives, with ourselves and one another. We gaze into a screen and we pretend that we are part of the image before us. But deep down, we know we are simply observers of a digital mirage. We experience a quiet longing to be connected, to be at one with a reality just beyond our grasp, a reality we can perceive but not control. At a deep level, we know we belong to this mysterious reality. A contemplative is simply someone not very interested in abstract, conceptual, intellectual, or theoretical interactions with life. Artificial intelligence is an appropriate context for this dominant posture in our age. Artificial, not the real thing. Doran was the real thing. Doran taught me to seek out and appreciate the perspective of dark places. My father, strangely, seemed to be rejuvenated and renewed through his intentional encounters with danger and death. Today, we are unmoved by the radical notion of breathing underwater. But for most of human history, this was not even conceivable. During World War II in occupied France, Jacques Cousteau invented the aqualung. In the immediate years after the war, this new technology was explored with fatal consequences for many pioneering divers. At that time, there was no formal how-to manual, no certification program. When I turned 10 years of age, as the oldest of 4 young brothers, I believed Doran was hopeful of finally having someone big enough to play with in his adventures. He put an aqualung on my back at age 10 and set me underwater to breathe. I remember his 2-part instruction. No matter what, keep breathing. And more divers are killed by panic than anything else. Don't panic. I continue to be guided by this instruction. As Doran would lead my various Cub Scout and Boy Scout troops into the many caves of southern Indiana, which he knew intimately, when reaching the deepest point, his favorite ritual was to have everyone extinguish all lights as we experienced the silence and the darkness. As a young person, following my father, I was captured by the romance of the undersea world revealed in the crystal clear waters of the coral reefs off the Florida Keys. As I became a teenager, this romance quickly melted in the dark, muddy waters more typical of Midwest salvage diving. Most salvage jobs involved entering muddy water where the capacity of light to penetrate ended at about 2 or 3 feet of depth. Beneath that, only darkness. Whatever work had to be accomplished had to be done by feel. This usually meant driving a stake in the mud at the bottom of whatever body of water it was with a line on it and blindly swimming in circles, attempting to feel the missing object or structure. Again and again, I remember observing all the would-be salvage divers in training, often 5 or 6 or more, as they gathered on the shore of a work site to follow my father into the water. I would watch as within 1 to 3 minutes, the enthusiastic helpers, one by one, would all return to shore with various excuses as to why they were unable to continue as they made an early exit. Dark water is scary. The most dangerous jobs were the ones along the gravel pits of the so-called White River. When the heavy equipment went down in 30 or 40 feet of water, this presented challenging underwater gymnastics in the dark. Doran would orient me on a cable connecting with the surface with some structure on the bottom. He would communicate with me my instructions by the number of tugs on my arm to show me what to do and where to go. Somehow, he knew how to orient himself in the darkness. I learned to trust his steady hand in this world without sight, where one's eyes are wide open, and yet with nothing but temptation to hallucination to see. The contemplative intentionally practices managing consciousness in the presence of overwhelming mystery. There's another element of this quest for connection with the real, known by contemplatives, not manifest in external adventure, but in the chambers of a broken heart, the deep places of sadness and grieving. I've been taught the only way to avoid a broken heart is not to love. Doran loved again and again and again. His heart was shattered again and again and again. A broken heart can become a bitter heart. It can also become an open heart, a compassionate heart. Doran chose the path of compassion again and again. He never inflicted his personal suffering on anyone else. He never outwardly felt sorry for himself. And when others were hurting, he was the first one there. Whenever there was a crisis, he gave what he had. In many cases, this was ice cream. As a child, I remember riding with my father to deliver ice cream to one of my schoolmates after his father died suddenly. It was a large and poor family. The father was the only breadwinner. But that day, ice cream provided some comfort. Doran was an enthusiastic participant and advocate in our family's adventure with motorcycles. On April 3rd, 1970, my brother Kip, with his friend Bobby on the back, were riding Doran's large, new Harley-Davidson north on Walnut Street when they encountered a moving van in a fiery explosion. Bobby died at the scene. Kip was placed on life support in intensive care. He would spend the next several months in and out as a resident of St. Vincent's burn unit. After the event, for the man who made his living with words selling ice cream, Doran took himself off the front line. Not going to work was not an option. He put himself in a support role in the back of the ice cream stand. He couldn't speak. The enormity of the event could only be embraced by silence. Doran learned to live with the grief of a shattered heart. When my son Zachary died of cancer at age 26, Doran retreated often to his office to weep before the photo of his favorite fishing buddy. No words, only tears could touch this inescapable reality. While countless other stories of loss and heartbreak in Doran's life could be shared, you get the message. He knew personally the grief and sadness of embracing all of life and not just some of it. I have learned if you do not know another person's suffering, you do not truly know them. If I do not know my own suffering, I do not know me. Doran found a path through heartbreak in service to others. A wise man once said, "The further I descend into myself, the closer I get to hell." Doran never outwardly manifested any inclination towards self-pity. He looked around for where he was personally needed and found a path outside himself. For years, his partnership with Habitat for Humanity provided such a path. When he was finally confined to the retirement community at Beltrace, he would get up at 5 a.m. to encounter the newspapers scattered on driveways. In his own self-assigned paper route, he would redeliver these papers directly to the front doors of his physically compromised neighbors. After his car keys were taken away and falls and strokes left Doran confined to his chair in a Beltrace cottage, the mobility and the momentum of over 9 decades came to an end. The inevitable conversation with the 11th hour began. When the conversation ended, he completed an extraordinary journey. It was finally time to stop breathing, yet once again, not to panic, but to trust the support of the deep place. Doran is now and forever a messenger of the deep. His enduring presence continues to invite us to connect in our own lives beneath the surface. Please join me as we close these reflections with a contemplative affirmation. Take a moment, allow your eyes to gently close. Focus upon your breath. Yes, keep breathing. And find a restful posture. Oh, you who meet us in darkness, clouding our minds, breaking our hearts, and delivering us to the contemplative path. On this path, when we grasp, there is nothing to know. We can know all things. When we grasp, there is nothing to do. We can do all things. When we grasp, we are blind. We can see all things. When we grasp there is no place to go, we can go all places. When we grasp there is nothing to keep, we can have all things. When we grasp there is nothing to become, we can be all things. By your dark guidance, do we live? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And so it is.
Sister Rain, will you love me again? Sister Rain, will you love me again? Send it down to the ground to let it all soak in. Send it down to the ground to let it all soak in. Mountain stream, this life is more than it seems. Mountain stream, this life is more than it seems. The holy daughter is the water that connects all living things. The holy daughter is the water that connects all living things. Sister River, will you carry me? Sister River, will you carry me past the town, through the valley, down to that place of peace? Past the town, through the valley, down to that place of peace. To Mother Ocean, I hear you calling me. Mother Ocean, I hear you calling me. You are the one, you are the greatest, the source of all living things. You are the one, you are the greatest, the source of all living things. But Sister Rain, will you love me again? 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 Love me again. Will you love me again? And send it down to the ground to let it all soak in. Send it down to the ground to let it all soak in. Send it down to the ground to let it all soak in. Send it down to the ground to let it all soak in. 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 Let it all soak in.
That was so beautiful. Thank you, Erin Pollitt and Joanne Shank. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being here, dear friends and family. On behalf of Doran and Mary Ellen and our entire family, we thank you for joining us to celebrate today. Please stay for an ice cream social afterwards, courtesy of your very own chocolate mousse out there in Garton Hall. And I want to thank the Chocolate Mousse and Jordan Davis for this very generous and delicious ice cream treat we are about to receive. And I would be remiss if I didn't send all of us out to take time to play this summer and eat ice cream, both here in Bloomington and in Nashville and wherever Moose ice cream is sold. Grandpa Doran would also want to remind you to take time to have fun, celebrate your own life. As my Uncle Kip said in the video, he was Mr. Affirmation, so be sure to tell your friends and family how much you appreciate and love them, and tell them often. Grandpa Doran chose to look for the good. He avidly practiced affirmation in his daily life, and today he let us know that he's handing us a splendid torch to be a force of nature, to be a force for good, to be a force of love. So let's take that torch and run with it. Let's burn as brightly as possible with the light of our own lives. Thank you again for being here. Thank you for contributing your stories today, and let's keep the stories going. If you have a story about Doran you want to share, let's share it together while we enjoy some ice cream. And once again, I'd like to invite Pastor John Huff to lead us in prayer. Thank you.
How do you keep a pastor short in their words? You promise ice cream afterwards. Let us pray. And I would invite you to, if you feel led, to pray with an open palm position of receiving and as also freely giving. Let us pray. God of love, we thank you for all which you have blessed us, even to this day, for the gift of joy in days of health and strength, for the gifts of your abiding presence and promise in days of pain and loss. We praise you for home and friends, for our baptism and place in your church, with all who have faithfully lived and died, including our brother Doran. Above all else, we thank you for Jesus, who knew our griefs, who knew our pains, who died our death and rose for our sake, and who lives and prays for us. O Lord, as you first gave Doran to us, now we give him back to you. Receive your Son with all of your people, and receive us also and raise us into new life. Help us so to love and serve you in this world, that we may enter into your joy in the world to come. Amen. Receive this blessing. May the peace of God, which passes all understanding, keep your hearts and minds in the knowledge and love of God. And the blessing of God Almighty, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, be among you and remain with you always. Amen.